The whole idea is to get the transmission spinning at the same speed that the engine
Sure.
is spinning at.
Yeah,
And you actually do it by sound.
yeah.
So what is this trophy?
I don't know.
You don't know. She
I
said you
know.
might not know. It says the persistent Ford.
Yeah, that don't ring a bell.
Okay, 1954 was given to Bob Elliott.
Yeah.
Tri-City Racing Association.
Tri-City,
Yep.
The story I heard was he got it because he went to every race and he lost most of them, but he came back every time and raced again.
Persistent.
So that's where the persistent,
Yeah.
How old were you here?
huh?
How old were you in this one?
Old enough to get a driving license.
no, he probably didn't have a driver's
Just
license.
barely.
Just barely, you look at. So you started racing in 1950?
I don't know, I don't remember.
Yeah?
Probably.
Yeah, so he would have been about 20.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, that's about the right age. I
Yeah.
remember most people I knew that were getting into it was, you start tinkering with the cars around 15, 16, and then you start racing when you're about 18 and can finally do it legally. So,
You know, it got to the point where it's so expensive to run.
yeah,
I remember my neighbor, the different neighbor, he was running in the modifieds, and he ended up selling the car and just quitting racing altogether because he said, I really can't justify my wife holding down another job just so that I had $500 a week to run my car.
yeah.
What did you win? Like when you, if you won a race, what was the?
Not much.
I was gonna say. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember.
No. Probably not enough to keep your cars running.
It was the joy of winning.
Yeah,
Yeah. I never raced anything, but did a lot of road rallies,
Mm-hmm.
which is a weird animal to try and
Yeah.
equate to racing. It just didn't work. But it was more the challenge of trying to be at the right place at the right time, rather than racing.
Yeah.
So,
I was saying on the way in here, I was reading last month's Hemmings, and they said they had a picture of a guy, and the caption is Ben Bragg the fourth in the old gray mare sets another record on this hill climb in Massachusetts.
wow.
And I said, boy, I bought one of my cars from his grandfather.
Yeah.
So you never know,
you never know.
yeah. And, yeah, his grandfather, actually, they showed a picture of his grandfather talking to the drivers. And, boy, he raced that car for a long time, and it's still being raced.
I wonder if racing's in the blood, because you have a grandson that races motorcycles.
Yeah,
No, great-grandson that races motorcycles. Your great-grandson, David, and he wins a lot of his races.
What were some of the other tracks around here? Yeah.
or what?
What were some of the other tracks around that you drove at, raced at?
It was just a dirt track in Brattleboro. The big one was the one in Bennington,
In Bennington?
is where everybody went to. Yeah.
Where was the track in Brattleboro?
And where?
Brattleboro.
You know what Chelsea Royal was a restaurant?
Yep,
It was just beyond that on the left-hand side going down.
About where Leader
Okay.
Home Center is, and
Okay,
there's
yep.
they sell campers in that field right there.
oh, yep.
Did you do any racing out of state? Going into other states?
I don't think so.
Did you ever race at the fairgrounds in Manchester?
Did where?
Manchester?
No. No.
Rutland?
Huh?
Rutland?
No, we were headed for Rutland one night, but we didn't make it. It wasn't because the race car wouldn't run, it was because the tow car wouldn't run.
Yeah.
And your mechanic couldn't fix it, huh?
Yeah.
You raced a truck in, was it,
Huh?
you raced a truck in Florida,
Yeah,
a big, what kind of truck was it?
I don't know. Big one.
Big cabover.
Yeah.
They had a race for the drivers that hauled the race cars,
Oh, okay.
and it was a timed thing. All the drivers had to race the same truck, and they did it timed so many times around. I think it was written up in one of the racing magazines. We have that celebration month, right? Didn't have to do with this kind of racing, but you did race a big truck in Florida once.
Yeah.
But that's part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like a carnival sometimes.
So, Bob, who was the driver you drove the hauler for?
Who was what?
The driver that you drove the hauler?
Who did you haul your race cars for?
I don't know.
Carrie Teagues was one of them. And then I don't know who the driver was. The owner is,
I'm
Bill
losing my
Fenton.
memory, so I'm in good shape. I got
Yeah.
a good out. I just can't remember.
Bill Fenton from Fenton Family Dealerships.
Yeah.
He owns some race cars, and Dad hauled a lot of his cars cross-country up into Canada.
Yeah.
He, when he turned 80, they decided that they probably ought to hire a new truck driver. So they hired it's really not funny, but it is sort of funny, ironic, I guess. They hired this young 60-year-old guy to ride with my father. My father was gonna teach him what you did when you went out to Las Vegas or whatever. And the young gentleman had a heart attack. So they kept my dad for a little while longer. Do you remember that?
No.
No, I know you wouldn't.
My nose is still running, so I'm gonna have to get a pail or something to catch it.
Well, we have some snacks and stuff over here if you guys wanna.
Right?
Did you get to see the panels and you read about the racing, the other tracks in the other room?
That
I
night when we
remember.
first got
Did
there.
you do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a nice exhibit.
it is a nice
Yeah.
exhibit.
I spent a good amount of time when I came in first to find out where everything was gonna be.
And I think it's
That's
ironic that the
yeah.
race at
Yeah, I took the
Equinox
elevator
is
down.
Yeah.
happening now.
Yep.
Peggy wasn't here on Tuesday, I don't think so.
No, I did not see him on Tuesday. No, I was here Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but,
I'm gonna have a snack.
yeah.
Well, it's all part of the gallery. Peg is part of the gallery committee with the
So, yeah,
Vermont.
so feel free to. Can I get you guys something to drink or something, or some snacks or something?
Panels.
Oh,
We have iced tea, seltzer, and water.
14
You want something to drink?
year they did
I think so.
No.
She's gonna get
I think
something.
so.
She's gonna get something for you, okay? How about you,
The
Ken?
library.
I'll have something to
was
eat.
loaned from-
Okay, well, you're welcome to, what,
I'm gonna,
It's
I
okay,
don't
3-month
know.
loan.
Just an assortment.
just an assortment, okay, we'll get you a bit.
Look at that, it's all soft. Let's see if you'll eat one.
We have
Do you like
another,
garlic?
maybe 8 or 10
Is
other
garlic okay?
Yeah.
travel
okay.
exhibits as well.
Because this has a little bit of garlic on it.
With quite a variety of themes.
just thinking about mechanics and guys building cars. I had this '54 Chevy, and it was using a lot of oil. And I said to my neighbor, John, the car's using a lot of oil, and he said, well, let's take a look at it. So he comes over and he looks at it and says, well, I think the oil is leaking down from your valve stems. He says, I think the seals are, you gotta get new seals. So he says, what I'll do is, I'll give you my wife's toolbox. Don't you dare put a tool away dirty. If she looks in that toolbox and sees a dirty tool, you will never get another tool from her to use. Okay, that was my learning on that. And so he said, take the head off and bring it over here tomorrow night, and we'll take a look at it on the kitchen table. And we'll probably take the valves out there. So I bring it over, he takes the valves out. He says, now, put your finger in here. He says, you feel how rough that is inside? He says, I'm going to give you a tool, and you're going to smooth all of that out. And you're going to scrape all carbon out of the combustion chambers. Okay. So I bring it over the next day, and he says, you didn't scrape it enough. You got to get every bit out. And you still have to work on the bottom. But you need to go to the auto parts store and get a new gasket for doing work on the head. And he said, tell them it's for me and they'll give you the discount. Okay. So I work on this thing for 4 days, and he finally says, okay, now we can finally do the valves. He says, I'm going to grind the valves, and Millie's going to do the seats. Okay. And he says, now, how do you want me to grind the valves? Do you want it ground the way the factory would grind it, or do you want it ground the way I would grind it? I said, well, what's the difference? He says, if I grind them, there's going to be 3 grinds. If the factory does, it's only 2. My valves, you end up with 3. And the same thing with the seats. So I said, well, what's the difference? He said, well, the difference is if you grind it my way, your car's going to be able to go like a scalded dog. Okay. He says, there's only one drawback. And I said, what's that? He says, you're going to have to reset your valves every 1,000 miles. He says, but don't worry, I'll teach you how to do it. You do it with the motor running. So you ever think about that? You got a feeler gauge in one hand, and you got 2 wrenches, and you're going like this because the valves are going up and down, and you're going up and down with it, and you're trying to get the feeler gauge in there. And you can do it. It's not easy, but you can do it. So that was my introduction to using tools and working on engines.
Now, was Millie his wife?
Yeah.
Yeah, she helped out
Yeah.
with the engine stuff.
Oh, and now a good Christmas story. One December, he's out in a field with his kids, and he steps into a gopher hole, and he breaks his ankle, a severe break, and they can't put a cast on it. And now he's out of work, And he has no workman's compensation, he hasn't worked there long enough, so he's not gonna have any income coming in. They're getting food from the local grocery store, which, once the food is so old, they have to get rid of it anyway, so they would get rid of it at his house. And so, he and his wife convinced the kids that Santa Claus is busy bringing food to people that don't have food. And since they have food, Santa figured that he could skip their house this year and go to other people who are worse off than we are. Well, I was the youngest guy that used to hang around with him. All the rest of the guys were either in college or the military. And we all got together and we bought a Christmas tree and decorations and gifts. And they never locked their house, so 1 o'clock in the morning, they're in there and they put up the Christmas tree and put the decorations on it, and they wrapped the Christmas gifts and put them all under the tree. So, Christmas morning, my dad's telephone, or his chair, is right next to the telephone in the living room. Telephone rings. Ken, it's John. He wants to talk to you. Yes, John. Get your ass over here. What? Just get over here. So I go in the door. There's the Christmas tree. The lights are lit. The kids are ripping the paper off the gifts. What is this? I said, gee, it looks like a Christmas party, John. He said, how did this happen? I don't know. All he said was, you guys. I said, John, who spends his time after work at home working on cars for nothing? He says, yeah, I just like doing it. I said, well, you gotta realize that people believe in payback, and this is payback to you.
Yeah.
So that was the best Christmas I ever was part of, because I never saw one like that again.
What year do you think that might have been?
1970, no, 59, 1965. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I mean, John had 7 kids at that time. So that was really something. It was nice to see it.
Yeah, it's nice when people take the time and the consideration to say thanks like that. Not want necessarily to get recognition, but just want to say thanks.
And I wanted to buy his Model A Roadster. And then he decided he didn't want to sell it after we had agreed on a price. And all of a sudden I got a telephone call from him. You still want to buy that Roadster? I said, yeah. Same price? Yep. Okay. Get over to your dad's house by Saturday. The car will be there. I said, what happened? He said, Millie came home from shopping and somebody was trying to load the Roadster on a trailer.
Wow.
They were stealing it out of his garage.
Wow.
Yeah. That's surprising to me, and you just
Yeah.
don't expect that.
I mean, there's no call for that kind of stuff.
No.
Now, one of the things I noticed as I went through the museum display there is they didn't say when the races started to be televised. Do you know when that happened?
I can remember, now I would be in high school at the time, so sometime between 55 and 59. And it was televised as a jalopy derby, and it was coming out of California at that time. And it was on like every Thursday night, something like that. But there wasn't anything local that was being.
Well, not everybody had
televised.
TV either, probably.
Be interesting to find out and look more into that and see how it developed and where it went.
Yeah. And that, was it Chow Lee? A lot of those pictures are from the Chow Lee collection? I went, who is he? I mean, when?
I guess the racer probably from another part of the state, because when the exhibit was put together, I think they put out a request for, memorabilia or people that would,
Right.
could give information about it. And then the Vermont Historical Society put together that each
Right,
put
he
together-
supplied the pictures, but I wonder, like, he must have a treasure trove of pictures. They only picked these.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of pictures out there that just didn't get
Didn't
seen,
make
so
it.
they weren't
Didn't make
part
it.
of that exhibit, so I think, you know, like even what they have down here, these could be in the Brattleboro or the state line, you know, exit panel for that, so.
And why did you say the state line didn't get in there?
I'm not sure, I only assumed just from the information that they gave us that
Maybe
they
Mr.
didn't
Lee
have.
didn't have any of those
They didn't
pictures.
have any, you know, they didn't have a contact to
Yeah.
get those kind of pictures.
Yeah.
You know, so if we can come up with some from down here, I can say to them, we have this, you know, we can make copies of these pictures if they ever wanted to add in more panels. We can offer that to them if we could come up with more things.
I think one thing I've noticed is many of the Vermont Historical Society collections focus on mid-part and north, because that's where their main contacts are. Down here, people are further apart, and they don't have
the outreach.
they don't have as many phone numbers to reach people.
Yeah.
It's been referred to as the banana belt for many years.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine Mr. Lee didn't have a lot of pictures from down here.
Right.
Yeah. Now, they may have, if you go to the Vermont Historical Collection, they may have actually quite a wide range of material that didn't make it into this.
Yeah.
When did the interstates get into state so that people could move around and see things?
When did 91 come in?
Yeah.
Dad, when did you build
80,
91?
what is it, 80 something?
What?
What year did you work on building Interstate 91? Do you
Doing
remember?
what?
The Interstate 91, going north.
Oh, I don't know.
You don't remember what year you were building that?
I would say something was built in the sixties,
I was gonna say this.
because my dad also worked on them.
Right.
And, I remember we spent a summer up in Lake Champlain when he was doing the northern part.
Okay.
And I was probably 12 or 13 then. So
Well, I guess one of the big things here is Super 7 that you have,
Yeah.
because I can remember driving into Vermont and that not being there.
Cat will get it. The cat will pick it up,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, the proposal before that was right across the very top of the mountains, the Green Mountains. And that
Green Mountain
was
Parkway.
50s.
Oh, how would you do that?
It never got off the ground because it wasn't very popular.
No.
I can't imagine trying to do that. 7 is nice, and quite frequently we drive 7A anyway because we just like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Completely changed the demographics in this area though. Just back before that was built,
Mhm.
mid-60s. in the fall, you'd plan where you were going, and so you only had to make right-hand turns, so that you didn't have to try to
Oh.
cross 2 lanes of traffic
Yeah,
on 7A, because it was just so busy, it was nearly impossible to do.
that's why their signs are there, no left-hand turns.
So, yeah.
I said, what, your driveway is on the left side of the road.
Yeah.
I always wondered about that.
Yeah. Tourist areas are like that. I grew up in western New York around Niagara Falls, and used to hate the tourists when they came through because you couldn't go anywhere.
Yep.
And traffic was so bad. It's much easier in Ontario that, you know, driving and getting around in Ontario, Niagara Falls, Ontario is much easier than the United States side. It's just the way they handled the traffic patterns. You know, they did a much better job of it.
Are you from that area up there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Said the Vermont section of I-91 was built in stages from 1958 to 1965. So they did start it early.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the one that goes kind of diagonally by Barry, I think? 86 or something.
89?
I remember being at some kind of show here, and being invited to a picnic at a place in Shaftesbury. And going to the picnic, and it's getting dark, and I have my car on a trailer, and I said, gee, Bruce, I guess must be time for me to leave because it's getting dark and I can't see what my landmarks are gonna be, and I have no clue where I'm going, but I'm going home tonight.
Yeah.
And I remember driving home from here.
Yeah.
Would that have been Bruce Carmen?
Yeah,
Yeah, I know Bruce.
yeah. In fact, he came over to my house about a week ago, and I've got everything to complete a Model A Speedster. And I'm thinking, I can't do this. I can't get up and down like I used to be able to do, and I shouldn't be doing this. So I'm talking to Bruce. He came over and he took a look at it, and he says, nah, he says, I've got 3 cars that I'm trying to do now. And he says, well, why do you want to get rid of it? And I said, well, I just don't think I can do it. He says, well, look at me. He says, I can only spend 2 hours a day in my shop. And I spend my 2 hours a day. I don't take any pain pills or anything. And he says, I'm happy.
Yeah.
He said, you get rid of that and you're gonna wish you hadn't. So figure on spending 2 days. Hey, and if you need a shop to work in, come over to mine. We'll work together.
I was gonna say, sometimes it goes quicker and easier when you have somebody
Yeah.
else.
So that's what I'm working toward right now.
That's great.
And he says, and I happened to see him at the cruise Thursday night,
Yeah.
last month? Yeah, it's not this month, so it's gonna be next month. And he says, I'm always at the cruise night, just go over to the Hemmings booth and that's where I'll be. So, and I had been trying to find him for 3 years. I knew where he was.
Yeah.
I knew where his house was. I banged on the door. He doesn't answer his telephone. It rings and rings and rings. He never answers it.
Because he's in the shop.
Yeah. But yeah, he and I we would drive down to Pennsylvania, and I'd drive my car down and he'd drive his car down, but he would drive the Lincoln, of course. And then we would go to visit somebody, and I would usually ride with him with 4 other guys, and there'd be 6 of us in the car. We have a great time.
Oh, yeah.
And we do that every summer,
Yep.
and great times.
So I assume he's about the same age as you are.
Yeah, I'm 83.
Yeah. It's nice to be able to do that together with somebody else. And
Yeah.
you can talk and work, and it
Oh,
passes
yeah.
the time quicker. I notice I don't pay attention to my aches and pains that way.
Yeah.
Getting somebody to do the lawn with me would help, but
Well, I have to be careful my wife doesn't see me. Because she says, don't lift anything, don't pull anything. You'll hurt yourself and then you won't be able to do anything.
yeah.
And, you know, how can you move something from one place to another place unless you gotta do something?
But there's certain things you don't talk about. How'd it go? Oh, it went fine. Did you get anything done? Yeah, I got a little done, you know. But you gotta talk about the details.
Unfortunately, some of the stuff I'm looking to move, you can't miss the fact that it's moved.
True.
Any of that sound familiar?
Do you all still go to auto races? Are you still all interested in auto racing?
No.
No, I'm not as much interested in the auto races as more the, like the hill climb with the sports cars.
Okay.
I used to be really interested in Formula One racing back in '68, '70, that time period, when men were men and cars were cars. But now they're so complicated and complex that it's hard to stay on top of the technology. It's just like designing an airplane, a jet, almost.
I had tickets, NASCAR tickets at Loudon for several years and went over and did that.
When I met Ben Bragg, he was working for Don Lefferts. And I remember going over to Don Lefferts' place, and Don was on vacation, but the shop was opened. And I went in, and there's a stunt plane in there. And this guy that built it, did all the work on it, was a neurosurgeon.
Yeah.
And I went in and I knew who it was, and we were talking, and he says, I want to paint this plane, and I want it to go through the entire spectrum from white to black with every color in between, and meet at the middle and then go back out again. So it would be black where the cockpit was and white at the wingtips. And he picked a friend of mine to do the painting. And so he did it. He said it took forever.
Yeah.
Because
striped?
you would paint a color and you would have to wait for that to fully cure, because then you'd have to mask that off to paint the next color.
Yeah.
So, great.
We went to the, what was it, the NASCAR museum? Is that the one?
On Charlotte?
In Charlotte. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Dad, do you remember the last race you went to?
Right?
The last race that you went to?
No, I can't remember.
How about in 1990, I mean, yeah, 3 years ago. 3 years ago you went to Indianapolis?
3 years ago?
Mm-hmm. You and Robbie went to Indianapolis.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That was Indianapolis, Indiana. They run some fast out there.
And then you went to some sort of swamp race down in Florida. Remember that?
I've heard of it, but I haven't
And
really.
Robbie, you were telling me how it's like 18 inches of water that they run in?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was out in New York State, I think.
No, that was down in Florida.
That was in
That was
Florida?
down in Florida.
Maybe it was.
Yeah. Says all you can see is the rooster tails of the water. You can't see the cars. You just see the water.
Yeah.
You know, when did you stop racing? When you had your car, and when did you stop racing in Brattleboro, and was it after the kids were born?
Oh, we just went from day to day.
Oh, okay.
We never knew what we were gonna do tomorrow.
I think Kathy was a baby.
Okay.
The what?
Kathy was a baby when you stopped racing.
Probably.
Yeah. I think you told me Mom brought Kathy to a race once. So he would have only raced,
Okay.
he started at 20, maybe 5 years.
So that trophy was 1954, so you probably raced, what, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what did you do with your race car after?
Junked it probably.
Jumped it.
You junked it?
It was a jump to start with.
Probably wasn't worth much. What else do you do with them? If they're junk?
Yeah, sometimes they get parked out in the field and a tree grows up
Yeah.
beside it.
This chair is almost junk.
Is it,
Yeah,
is it hard to sit on it? You need to move, you need to.
You need
you
some help?
Getting up?
Need your help.
Yeah.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
You need to move around a little bit. You've been sitting for
Yeah.
quite a while,
I'm
actually.
all right once I get up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can do it on my own.
Yeah, but that didn't have any arms on it, did it?
Huh?
That didn't have arms to help you there.
No.
We're gonna head out, but
Very
thank you
good.
for your
Interesting.
memories. They
Oh.
were really interesting.
Well, I'm glad I could help out.
Thanks for stopping in.
Sure.
Yes.
Thanks.
Well, there's, oh, you know what, I didn't put the garbage over there. Yeah, it's in the kitchen. Yes, you've been sitting for a long time, so your hips are probably,
Did you meet my wife? Pardon, did you meet my wife? No. In fact, this is Phil Jordan, he's one of the Romans. This
no,
is
he's
my wife.
familiar. Hi, Phil.
Peggy, is it?
Peggy, yes, I know I've met you and
The
I've
three
seen
of
you
us get
before.
together Friday morning with
No, I know who you are,
12
yes.
other
When
guys.
I saw you, I was like,
who have breakfast
oh,
at the local restaurant.
you've been in the library
It's a
before.
group called
I've
the
seen you in the
Romeos.
library, so, yeah.
Really old men eating out.
Yeah.
Recently retired.
I
Yes.
guess they've been doing it
Someone
for
I knew
about
from
30
college
years
in
here.
Boston years ago.
Okay.
She was my ex-wife's best friend,
But,
Oh, wow.
both from Long
It's a
Island.
nice group of
Okay.
guys and get to
Small world.
share what's going
Small
on
world,
and
yeah.
talk about things like this as well.
Yep.
I think she's got the notion that she wants to go down to either
You know,
north or south.
one of the
Carolina.
cars
Her brother's.
that I had was called
I
the
can't tell the
Catfish.
difference between the two of them. Her
And it
damage
was
is always the
A
same.
midget,
I think he's in,
with a little bit of a
just
tail
outside
on
Going
it.
out in the sun.
So it's not-
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was built, there was an Indianapolis
Move
car
around a
called the
little bit.
Catfish.
Gotta go stand in the sun.
And the
There you
midget
go. Yeah.
was built to be
Yeah, I know. It was- Oh, it's kind of.
half the size or something like that.
Did you get to see the
Scaled
pictures?
down,
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
But it was a midget,
Yeah.
the same design as the Indy car. And Ben Bragg is the guy that owned the car, and I bought it
Yep,
from
I
him.
was actually here, I was
I don't
coming
know
yesterday
who he
for our
bought
new
it
library
from.
director.
But I
I
remember
scheduled some
going
time off
to
before she got the
Indianapolis
And so I covered for her yesterday, and at
to,
just before 6 o'clock, it was.
to talk to the
And that's when it
son
was supposed to
of
close
the
up. By the
guy,
time I got home, it
that
stopped long
built
enough
the
to get
car
in the car in
originally.
the house, and it wasn't bad.
and he
Yep.
still had the company down there.
Just a project,
And, in Indiana.
just doing the final.
And I remember him saying, oh, I wish I had my car with me, because if I did, and we were, where were we?
Oh, no,
We were at the shop,
oh, no.
and he said, I wish I had my car with me, because if I did, I would take it to my home
Okay,
so that you
Yeah.
could see my collection of cars.
sunshine feel good?
Sunshine feels good.
Yep.
and I can't remember his last name.
Did you guys
at
get a
this
lot of
point.
rain
That's
yesterday
all
at your, at Melinda's?
Quite a
Did
little
you?
bit.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
just popped into my
Thank
head,
you.
Junior Drive.
Thank you.
And his
Come on,
father
Building.
built
Oh, I think it's
Indy
solar panels.
cars
Yeah.
and midget
I
cars.
think those are solar panels.
And he was a motorcycle racer.
That's, no, that's the solar panels on top of the roof.
And-
That's the school.
They
Yeah.
owned the
All new
largest,
technology.
Ain't nothing like it.
they had the
No.
largest
No.
motorcycle dealership in Indiana.
And I don't know if it's any better.
And
You got a point.
Sometimes you think it might be,
so
then the next
He
minute
took
you
us
turn
to his
around and say
house.
it ain't worth it.
took us upstairs, we could see all the cars that he
Lot
had.
of things, a lot of changes.
And he gave me
Guess what?
something,
Well, I
he
have
bought a
one.
car, and they had changed the radiator on it.
Well, you've done pretty
And
well
they
so
put a
far, haven't
stainless
you?
steel
You got
top
another
on
one
the
coming
tank.
up.
What?
And he didn't like it, and he
Birthday.
took the stainless steel
You got another
top
birthday
off, and he
coming
gave
up.
it to me, and he
In a
said,
few days.
give this back to
So
so-and-so
No, you're gonna
when
be
you get
94.
home.
Oh, so then you're 93.
So I did.
93 today,
I
you'll be
remember
94.
going there,
I said,
and,
thought you were gonna be
you know,
93.
my
No, you're
wife,
gonna be
being the one
94.
piped up, said, well, we'll drive you. It really surprised me. I was a
Oh,
little-
You had a lot of support from
Appreciate
your
you
wife
just
and
hold on
family.
tighter.
Oh, yeah.
He'd like to still be out there
So-
driving it, but,
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
can't run as fast as I used to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Take care.
That helps a
Thanks for
lot.
stopping in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it takes a lot of
Nice to meet you too.
trust, I guess,
Yeah,
Yeah, I got a pair of pants. like
tolerance to
You like
be able
those?
to let
that.
that happen.
All I need is a pair of
A lot of
scissors.
people just get into banging heads about things like
Melinda, I
that,
think has,
so,
probably
yeah.
has those.
Huh?
Melinda probably
That's
has
good.
some.
Oh, well, I'm sure she has.
but
If I cut them off, you gonna wear
the,
No.
them? I know that.
I
Well, then my scars all show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
remember once, Chris is my second wife. I remember
Yep, You've had quite the interesting
my
life.
first wife and I
You've
were
had quite
going
the
up
interesting
to
life with lots of
Maine
things.
Yeah. I have.
to let her
Yeah.
parents know that we were divorcing.
I want to take a picture.
And
Actually, I should get a picture of you with your stuff.
we left
And
our
Ken with
house
his
at
pictures,
4 o'clock in the
That's good.
morning,
There you go.
and we're going up 84. And I went under a bridge,
It turned out very
and
nice.
when we came out
Yeah.
from under the bridge,
I've been around a
the whole
while.
road was ice.
Just a little bit,
Yeah.
just a
And
little.
the car just spun
My
around
brother's been
and
around.
went
been there
right
long.
across,
Not
If he
quite.
stayed alive.
right
I
in front of
know,
the
yeah.
tractor trailer,
Not
and
quite.
hooked
You
on
didn't
the
quite have the-
guardrail,
Same
and peeled off the hood and the fender.
makeup as you.
And I
His body
remember
just didn't handle
The guy
everything
in
the
the
same
tractor
way.
trailer stopping
No.
and backing up and picked us
I think
up.
him and his
Yeah.
sister liked
And
the
he
bottle too
says,
much.
Huh?
Him and his
I
sister
don't know
liked the
what
bottle
God
too
had for
much.
you to do,
Yeah.
you ain't done it yet.
Don't think that was,
Because
didn't
I
either one of
don't
them any
know why
good.
I
I
didn't
never
get
got
you.
in much with the ball.
Yeah, well, you're
He says,
lucky.
"There's-
Yeah.
Yep.
Did I?
I was sure I was going to hit you.
It's kind of funny how, you
Yeah,
know,
and he
it's
said there
interesting
would've-
how somebody, you know,
We
same
were in a
family,
little
whether
Datsun at
people
the
do or
time.
don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he says there wouldn't
Were
have
your
been
parents
anything left of
drinkers?
that
I don't
house.
No.
remember
No,
them.
Yeah.
his mother wouldn't let.
I didn't
No,
know
I
so.
don't think, I never saw.
That was
my
the other
mother.
car my uncle fixed
Yep,
up
I did.
to,
I think I remember.
My mom
to do some
said she
minor
was so
racing
against
with.
alcohol, she
It
wouldn't
was a
drink
Datsun
anyway.
sedan.
Really?
Well,
Your mother would not, my mother told me, your mother would not have
Bob
milk in
Sharp.
the house.
Huh,
That's how much she was against anything alcohol.
wow.
is,
That's what my mom said.
he had the largest Datsun
But-
dealership in the United States.
Your dad smoked,
Yeah.
Yeah, he smoked.
and he drank
And
Coca-Cola.
he was
that's back when
racing his
Coca-Cola
coupe
had cocaine in
up
it.
at Lime Rock.
So there's
And
something to be
Paul
said there
Newman
too.
Yeah.
Was, they were just doing the movie Winning.
No, it wasn't. But if
And
you're,
so
you're
the
drinking enough of
director
it all day
of
long,
the
you've
movie
got
comes to Bob Sharp,
Yep.
and he
different
says,
routine.
could you take this guy
But
for a
when
ride in
got
your
out,
car?
Both his parents. They
And he
got
says,
out.
sure, you
Yeah,
get
he
a
was sure he
uniform,
was gonna die
you know,
before
you
65.
get a driver's suit
Because they
for him
both
and
died
a
before
helmet, sure, I'll
65.
take him for a
My
ride.
dad,
So he
he
doesn't
thought
know
he
who
would die before
Paul Newman is
65,
with
and when
Man
he
in the
hit
Moon, all he
65,
thinks about is
and he hit
racing.
66, and he didn't
So-
die. I finally said to him one day, you think you could start
Paul
living
Newman
again?
gets in the car, they go around 6
But
laps,
still didn't give it up.
Bob Sharp pulls into the pits.
He did the best he
Why
could.
don't you take it out for
He just
3 or
said to
4
me, if
laps
I'd
and see
known
how
I'd
you like
lived
it?
this long,
Paul
I'd
Newman
take
goes
better
out and
care of
does it.
myself.
Comes back in, he says, can you build me a car like this? He says, sure I can. beginning of Newman
Wouldn't
Sharp
stop
Racing.
smoking and
Yeah.
wouldn't stop drinking.
I remember that,
He cut
that
down on
racing
drinking
team.
occasionally
Yeah,
sometimes.
See,
Yep.
I didn't smoke.
He lived in Connecticut,
Yep.
right?
That's all.
And
Yeah.
Aunt Sis did smoke,
Yeah.
she smoked also.
Yep.
Aunt Sis smoked, must have been that little one
And,
gray that they went to.
Maybe. Now, all four of your kids.
I have a recording
Yeah.
someplace.
But then Rob
I don't know where it is, it's in storage because I know I packed it
She'd
away
almost like one up.
because I didn't want anything to happen to it when we were moving.
Walter's
And
grandfather was
so
like that.
sooner or later I'll find it.
Huh.
But they're interviewing people that race against Paul Newman.
I was 3 packs.
Off day.
And what happened was
One of them knobs up.
Bob Sharp broke his wrist,
There should be a tree on the top.
and when it
of
healed, he
Should be.
could never shift
Yeah,
as
way
fast
up,
as he
way
used
up.
to be
Way, way
able
up?
to.
Yeah, way, way,
So he
way up.
retired.
You've been to the top of that.
But
Did Melinda say
He
you
wanted to
wouldn't?
keep everything going until his
That's- yeah.
son
Yeah.
was able to drive.
I can't get over how many people.
And he
said,
took me,
I would have
we were
never
at
dared
his
drive that.
house, and he took me down to the basement.
Depends on what you have for a
And
car.
here
and
is
how good your brakes
A
are.
19-year-old
We went up
Datsun
when I
race
was,
car. He says, can you imagine this, a 19-year-old kid in a 19-year-old car won the sports car championship again?
See that building right over here where the V
That's great.
And
entrance?
so and
Just a little bit
that
to the
got
left, and then go
that
straight
got,
up on the mountain, and that's where we were.
Scott Sharp into racing, and he eventually raced in Indianapolis, and he's a good driver.
Big time.
After
And
it got down and off of
so
it.
Bob Sharp was
Or I
in
guess
the
when you got
the
home,
same
Bill says,
men's
Thank you
group
for driving, he says,
that
I
I
could have
was
never
in.
done that. I'm like,
Did you ever do any road racing?
I didn't.
I dated a girl.
I played at it.
Ah,
I mean, there was a guy that I worked with
I had a
that he
62
was
Chevy.
constantly buying new cars,
Yeah.
or
I would have enough
other
brakes to stop
cars.
So that I
And
didn't go all
he
the way out
bought
to Route 7. when I
A
get
Triumph Roadster.
Had all the drum brakes,
And
they
he
overheat,
says,
you know, when they just,
I want you
remember
to
that,
drive
like
the
I said,
Roadster.
Years ago when I had the car.
I'll ride with you,
Stop
but I
sign
want you
on
to
it.
drive it and see how it handles. And I remember really driving it on these twisty Connecticut roads.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Got back,
There were brakes,
and he said,
yeah.
you know, the engine held.
I
back.
wish I could
And if
drive
you do,
like you
see,
do.
ours doesn't, our edge that we
But he
have,
says,
the
"I know
engine
I
doesn't
can't."
hold back
Yeah.
as much.
He's a straight line guy.
well,
Escape
if you
used
to
get
be-
it
Oh, maybe
into
if you
the
put
right
it into-
mode,
But,
you put it into.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed
Say, then you
that
got
drive.
things that are on the steering
Yeah,
wheel.
But-
yeah.
See, I don't know how to do that.
I could never justify to myself
You know,
buying a car as an everyday car and beating the hell out of it. So I just never did it.
I can understand that
everybody
too.
worked for it.
I didn't have enough money to
Right down
buy
here.
a second
Here, in our-
car.
oh, Mac molding.
No, what
But-
about that moment?
That's not
That's
where
what you asked me if
your
it was.
passion and interest was in
Yeah.
So
the
they often call it
the
just
dirt
Mac.
track. you know,
Right.
and that-
That's the
There
big
was a-
plastics.
There was a
Yeah.
refrigerator, an icebox.
Thinking about Bruce Carmen and all the stuff that we've
Is that
done.
right?
But in World War II, that's when Mac molding.
What was the most memorable thing?
Plastics molding,
What sticks in your mind?
they did a lot of stuff.
Any one thing? Or five? I mean,
Oh,
it's-
whatever.
yeah.
They have two
Oh,
plants. They have one down here
I mean,
in
it's
town, which was their
so many
original plant,
different,
and then they
you know,
built the
little
big one out on,
things.
Yeah.
on the access road.
Well, that's what I find too. It's not necessarily the big things,
Yeah,
but what really was satisfying and really felt good
Okay.
were some of the
Well,
small
here-
that was like going to Bruce
I don't
Carmen's
really need
picnic.
to know, because I'm not going
You're
there.
not
You know, and having a guy say to me,
You take a right here and you follow the
Bruce
road
Carmen invites
until
you
you get
to his
to a
picnic,
corner
you
store that
go.
says Bonnie and Clyde's, and you take another right.
Otherwise, he'll
and
never
then-
speak to you
Yeah,
again.
it's out there, yep,
And you'll
it's out
regret
there.
it.
When I'm there.
You
Yeah.
wanna
So-
go right by the candy store.
I do.
Right.
You barely drive it.
The
I
last
do
time
go.
we came, Bill brought him that
You
way.
But-
said that, yeah.
And he didn't
I would
remember.
do crazy stuff.
So,
I mean,
I
I would
figured
be
why
up
being
here
on my
in
car,
Vermont,
Right,
I bought it,
and I would
he's
be
not gonna
driving,
remember it.
you know, 3 hours back to Connecticut and leaving here at 9 o'clock at night to do it.
We've had the last week or so, it made me must have on the spot, so I don't know. was it-
Hard to believe, but
Well, I do that. I do a lot of programs
No,
in
No,
that's
that's
the gentleman.
Boston
the other
area,
gentleman that's here.
Maine, southern
Yeah,
Maine.
yeah,
And
it's
it's-
She ain't got a red
Yeah, it's
car.
3.5 hours and I'll do that
Somebody
else.
there and back in a day. And it's-
well, our daughter And
No, she's got the one
this
on
is
the
one
other
of the
side.
things that God had for me to do.
So I wanna
I'm
take a picture of you next to your
absolutely
stuff.
certain.
That's my stuff.
Yes,
Couple
so if
things.
we go back in, when you're ready.
The real
One is,
thing is
with
this
Christian Men's
is
Fellowship,
Reading scheme.
we were meeting
the-
and we prayed, we'd sing, and
What's,
we helped people.
is that because you used to, what?
And,
Oh, bring it in.
so
She tell you you
I
couldn't bring it
remember
in?
we decided we really needed a 501c3.
You were on the Wheaties box?
Now,
You were on the Wheaties box?
we decided, I
Your
ended up
picture's on the
being the
Wheaties
secretary,
box?
and I ended up being the guy that wrote
That's so
everything
funny.
up and sent it into the IRS. And I got a telephone call from the IRS, Mr. Houston,
I figured you'd seen
we
it.
cannot
Oh,
issue
no,
your
I didn't.
501c3
When did they do that?
because you do not have the minimum
80.
amount of money you need to have.
That's so
13 years
funny.
ago.
But
We'll put that right
And-
up there.
I have never heard of this happening ever.
Old guy picture.
No, it's
before
not
or
a bad
again.
picture. That's when you were 80 years old.
I am
huh?
taking your application
And there you
and
are.
putting it
Look
in
at
my
that.
desk.
That's kind of, so how'd you have
When
that
you
done?
get to this
I,
dollar amount
I
in
called
your
Reeves.
account,
And asked if I could get
you
it done.
give me a call
They,
and
they
I'll
do
take it
offer
out
it
and
in
process it.
miniature sized boxes,
And
but
you'll
when I
have
said
your
he's had Wheaties for
501c3,
breakfast,
and we did
his
get it.
entire life,
That's-
they did
that's
it
great.
in big boxes.
That's-
I just
And
had
there
to
was
send him
another
the
guy,
pictures and I'd pay for it.
his name is Peter. And I remember he came to one of our meetings and he really felt terrible. And
Do you want me to bring you a
he
chair?
ended up.
You wanna
That's
stand?
the only one
he
that
goes into
stands
the
out.
hospital and he's
You know?
diagnosed
Do
with
you want to stand or
pneumonia.
do you want to sit?
Huh?
Do you want to stand or
He
sit?
died.
If he stood to the right of the table,
You know, from pneumonia.
There, let me take one without the Wheaties
We
box
didn't know
and then
what
I'll
was
put the
going
Wheaties
on.
box in.
Turned
So
out
come on
that
over
he
here.
had cancer and never knew it.
But,
But
excuse me, could you,
they had,
excuse me, Linda.
oh, sorry.
they had a memorial service for us. And I attended the memorial service, and it was downtown in Ridgefield, Connecticut. And his wife came out and said, Ken, I never knew how important Peter was to Paul and to the both of them in the Newman Sharp Racing Group, because all the great racers in the world are here at this program.
That's almost what you call cheap data.
And she said, I never realized that Peter meant this much to all of these important people in the racing.
That made up my mother.
Well, it's surprising. I think we take it for granted when it happens every day. You know,
Yeah.
it's,
That's cool.
it creeps up on us.
I'll get a good one
In
on the
many
Wheaties
ways.
box.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes something like that to really see what extent it's been impacting people's
Good
lives.
deal, man.
But right now,
That many people got that.
Chris had a
picture.
daughter, and her daughter has Prader-Willi syndrome, which is
Oh,
a
yeah.
very rare, you know what it's?
I know all about that.
Well, she has Prader-Willi
Well, they got a lot
syndrome,
of
she's
stuff
now
here in
50.
Richmond, ain't they?
Yes.
That's
you
great.
want to go back in
Yeah.
here?
Yeah, we went back in there, we did.
And periodically, we go down, we pick her up, we take her up here for a weekend, or we'll just go down there and take her out for dinner.
Yeah.
And so she calls me almost every other night,
Oh, nice.
and we talk. And it's just,
We're done with it, we have to pack it
it's
back up.
unbelievable.
Take it back to them, and they,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
rotates around the
And,
state. So, yeah, these all.
and she's concerned about the whole family.
So,
And my sister has two,
this is a picture here, this one's from the West.
she has two grandsons, 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they both like playing the drums. And her son is a drummer in a band, and he has a recording studio at his home. And they don't let the little kids down there unless Jim is home to be with them.
Yeah.
So you never know.
Yeah.
But anyway, I adopted Sonia because her father never paid for her medical expenses, never paid for anything for her, didn't pay her child support. And I said to Chris, I've got to adopt Sonia. And she says, well, you work on your side with the lawyer. And she said, I'll work on Stanley because he has never paid any child support. He has never paid my support.
Yeah.
She says, I was the one that was taking Sonia to work with me so I could work. And so that's what we did. And the judge says, and he's asking me all these questions, and the judge says to Sonia, Sonia, do you know why we're here? And she's standing next to me, and she grabs my hand, and she says, yes, sir. And he says, well, you tell me why you're here. And she says, this is my daddy, Ken, and he wants me. And the judge says, Ken, I don't have another question. This is done. But that's one of the things that I'm here for.
Exactly.
You know, and if I don't get a phone call from her, I worry.
Yeah. It's such a good feeling too to be able to reach out and connect and be there for Sonia.
Yeah.
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 It makes a big difference.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember two people. I knew two people with Prater William that lived in an apartment together. And,
Yeah. It's difficult because the worst thing is the trigger that says you haven't had enough to eat does not exist.
no.
And so they're hungry all the time.
Yep.
And unless they're controlled, they're way overweight.
Well, they can literally eat themselves to death.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Takes a lot of patience and a lot of understanding and love to deal with that.
So I have a picture. I'll come in sometime. I have a picture. My son, unfortunately, is dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. And it was caused by 3 people that I know, and I know what they did, and can't do anything about it. But he stays with us for 3 or 4 days, and then he goes up to his place in Cavendish for 3 or 4 days. And he's trying to get to the point where he can stay a week or so by himself, and he's getting there.
Oh, good.
But he's a musician. He has never taken a music lesson. He plays the electric guitar, the acoustic guitar, the bass guitar, the drums. He sings.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a guitar player. I'm in the ukulele group out at the senior center.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him about what Jeremy can do, and he says, my gosh, she's got it all. And he's never taken a lesson.
Yeah. He's a natural, as they say.
But, and I have some of the same thing, and I know why. And I'm with the ukulele group, but Henry has started up a penny whistle thing. Now, I don't have a penny whistle, but I have a recorder.
Yeah.
So I'm playing the recorder, which has an extra note, but the keying is almost the same.
Yeah.
It's just that I have a note lower. I have a low C and a high C on the recorder, and the penny whistles just have 1 C.
Yeah.
They don't have a low C. And it was funny. One day with the ukulele group, he says, are you people tired of music theory? I keep going over music theory with you. and he's asking people, and he comes to me, he says, I'm not even gonna ask you. He says, you like it. He says, I know you know it, but you like it. And I said, yeah, you know, it works. But the thing is, I can look at the music and I can hear the notes.
See, I've never been able to do that. I have no sense of rhythm.
And I will tell you why. My grandparents on my mother's side, my grandfather was part of the people that were trying to bring democracy to Czechoslovakia.
All right.
And he went to the university and became an architect. And when you went to the university, you had to have a trade before you went to the university, and his trade was cabinet maker. So he's in his office, and one of his friends comes in and says, Frank, you have to get home, wrap the two babies up, grab whatever you can, and flee, because you and your wife are slated to be killed tonight by the Communist Party. Your death warrant has been issued. And so they fled, and they came here. And he couldn't become an architect here, but he became a cabinet maker. And if you had an antique that was missing a part, you brought it to the company that he worked for, and he would make the part that was missing, and you would never know it was missing.
Yeah.
But anyway, he taught me how to carve wood and cut wood and that kind of stuff. I used to just stand by him in the basement while he would be making tables and chairs and all kinds of stuff. But now we go to my grandmother. My grandmother, I have a picture of her as a young woman, and a young woman in the 1880s would be 14, 15 years old. You were considered a woman.
Yep.
She was a musician in the Austrian court. She was a composer.
Wow.
She played the zither. I have her zither. I have her compositions. I really believe that's why in here I can hear the music when I'm just looking at the notes.
That makes sense. I understand that. Yeah.
I think after
You
doing
know,
music for so
and
long,
Henry-
you can hear it.
Pardon?
I think after doing music for so long, you can just end up hearing
Yeah.
it. Because I was the same way, just self-taught, never took a lesson, but it's much different to do that without the internet. Like just doing everything by ear. I think my grandfather was that way.
You're welcome to join us.
I'm very heated right now. I'm all about music.
Henry is a retired music professor from Connecticut College. That he is running this ukulele group.
Oh, okay.
And he plays the ukulele and he plays all kinds of stringed instruments. And if people are having problems with their guitar, they can't figure something out, they come to him.
Yeah.
And so anyway, he says one day, well, we're going to have a penny whistle training program here. And he's got 3 people playing the penny whistles.
Yeah.
And he says, you just, we'll come back to you after. We're going to do this penny whistle training program. So he does. And then he says, okay, now Ken, we'll do a recorder training program. And 2 of the women says, why? He was playing the recorder with us when you were teaching us to do it. And he was playing all the right notes.
Yeah.
He doesn't need any additional. And Henry says, yeah, I know.
But fair is fair. You know?
Yeah. But he says, from now on, you have to sit at the other end of the table.
You know, my wife and daughter are very good with music. And,
Yeah.
my wife plays guitar and clarinet, but I've never been able to really pick up on that. I'm not sure why. It's
One of our penny whistle players plays the flute. She decides she wants to play the flute rather than the penny whistle in the orchestra. And so Henry says, you have to practice more on the recorder because you have to take the place of the flute.
yeah.
But the recorder has the penny whistle is shrill. The recorder is not.
Yeah, it's a much more mellow.
Yeah. So he likes the recorder. And the thing is, I bought that recorder in 1959 with my first paycheck when I went to work for a company. And I never took it out of its box
Mostly because I had
to
one.
play it.
Until
I knew what it was, so I just never played it. And so now I'm playing it and I'm having
Are you
a
still working every day?
Yeah.
No?
So it sounds like you have a pretty active full life, a lot of different interests.
Thanks.
Yeah.
There's a cemetery
Great.
on the main road.
Well, I
After
have
you come off the interstate.
ukulele practice Monday at the senior center from
And then
10 to 1.
you come up the
And
hill.
then penny whistle recorder practice
I go out
from
that cemetery
10 to 12.
and I turn left,
The next
into the
day is
driveway.
on
give
Tuesday.
some papers to
And then
somebody that I
if
know.
we're playing anywhere in
Usually
town.
not there, I have to
then
leave
we
next
don't
door.
play in town.
Harold Snow.
Huh?
But,
Harold Snow?
Yeah,
Henry's great.
In Chester.
So where do you live? I think you mentioned
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Gore Road,
Pardon?
Gore Road
Okay.
in Bennington,
Okay.
just up from the firehouse.
Yeah.
where'd my wife go?
She would have
It's nice.
She's
Looks like
waiting.
things are kind of wrapping up.
put some
Like
stuff in the car.
Huh? Oh, she put stuff.
She did.
Yeah,
Looks like an empty bag.
yeah, I need to get
Oh, we
home
put your
anyway.
pictures in.
Huh?
Would you like to bring anything with you?
Yeah.
You wanna take your pictures home with you, don't you?
Do you want to snap a picture of this?
No, I'll take my pictures back. I thought you might be interested in
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
that. If you can imagine that all in pieces and the tail section all caved in. And shotgun holes in the cowl and the tail. And the amount of time I spent on it.
Yeah. I had a roommate who was running enduro motorcycle races. And he would ride his motorcycle into the dining room in
See, that's got
October.
the Steve Danish.
Take it apart and
And he's from New York.
bushel
so
baskets
Okay.
around
He
the
was always in
kitchen
the front line.
and then put it back together.
61 car.
So yeah, I can
Did he win
imagine
a lot of
that.
races then?
Yeah, he won a lot of
It's
races.
quite an eye to be able to see
That's
what
a
it's
nice
going to
picture.
look like and how to do
Really
it.
shows
Some fella that was
When,
stopping by the house
when I
one time,
started
knew I was into it, and
working
just brought it up to me
on
and said,
the
like,
catfish,
I just made
which
it.
I ended up buying this car so I could learn on it because I knew the
You don't know who it
catfish was
was.
too important
Yeah.
for me
I don't know what I
to
got.
follow it up somehow. So
Yeah.
I decided I
Since
had to
being the
restore
most
something else
persistent.
first.
Oh.
That doesn't another digit, so I
Well, I
did that.
never win. You just
And
have to
then-
be up front, but don't
Ended
ever
up
win.
selling the catfish because a guy wanted it
I'll run and get
because
her. Go to- It's time to get home, ain't it?
Is it time,
In
if
fact-
you're ready to go, yes.
he had a favorite driver, and the reason it was his favorite driver is because he used to drive.
You
the
edit,
catfish.
right?
So he wanted the catfish, and that has a Harley engine in it,
Oh, yeah.
Gordon
You
Stewart
headed
Harley.
home?
Okay.
And,
Peggy, do we have how to contact Ken?
He has, I think he signed up on the board, on the thing. I don't know if he put a phone number or anything.
Dad's?
Well, I've got yours
Okay.
and your email. And Ken's, I will check and see, but I know he did sign in the other day when he came.
yeah, I don't have an email.
It was a pleasure to listen to your stories.
I have a ton of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I think he's gonna leave. He's ready to, He's ready to head out now. You're welcome to hang out. There's no hurry. You got, you know.
All right,
Yeah.
it's good meeting you.
You as well.
It's good meeting you.
Good meeting you.
Thanks for coming.
Great.
You ready to
I
head
do
home?
have one question.
See ya.
There's one question.
Oh,
Do you have a restroom on this floor?
oh, yes, we do. Right behind you, right over here.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Makes it much more convenient.
yes.